Hey guys, what's up? Dr. Medic here. We're gonna have a pretty somewhat of a low-key talk today. So pop a top, grab some food, whatever. It's gonna be mostly chill, but I know this topic may be a little bit controversial and a little bit over-talked about, but whatever, I'm giving my 2 cents on it, so be ready. We're just gonna jump right into this. I was recently watching a video about the TF2 art style, where it started, where it's going, and what is the right thing. In that video, there were two sides of the coin. Traditionalist, those who were into many of the older, more safe cosmetics, such as fedoras, ball caps, coats, boots, and gloves. Then you had progressives. We see the art style of TF2 as pretty fluid, like a fluid entity that's allowed to be goofy. They tend to like the goofier, newer cosmetics such as the bulb bonnet, public speakers, globetrotter, hat chocolate, 1,000-yard stare, etc. Now, maybe not exactly those, but that general field, that general set of cosmetics. But which one is the superior opinion? Which one's correct? And where do I fall on the scale? Well, many of you could probably tell by the title, but let me explain. Let me break it down a little bit. If you would have asked me this question in 2016, I would have told you I was progressive. I liked a lot of the new cosmetics, the modern ones, with the more wacky designs. I enjoy many of the unusual effects. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Gen 1 through Gen 3, with some exceptions, but I still like most of the unusual effects. I like taunt effects. Personally, I don't really care for unusual taunts, as whenever I got an unusual fire, I would typically just sell it. But hey, I think they're fine, for the most part. And then I liked a lot of the war paints. Now, they weren't war paints at the time, they were skins, but still, I liked a lot of the skins. But around 2016, with the exception of a few that I can't think of right now, the wackiest cosmetic was the potassium bonnet. I remember how people perceived that cosmetic. They just thought it was weird and they thought it was degrading the TF2 art style. But the thing is it was really the only bizarre one in the case. And I guess you could make a case for the Captain Cardbeard Cutthroat, but let's be honest, I don't think it would stand out much today. But yeah, the potassium bonnet was like the worst it got. I do not hate new cosmetics. I do not hate goofy cosmetics. What I do dislike, and what will be the main point of this video, is the frequency of these new cosmetics. Of these goofy, wacky, zany cosmetics. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, and maybe I'm kind of blowing it out of proportion, but I feel like every case, with the exception of a couple of new cases, it feels like they're just trying to outdo the last one in terms of wackiness. Hey, let's strap a bomb to the demo man's head. That's pretty funny. And you know what? I genuinely agree. I think it's a funny premise. But here's the thing. It loses its novelty after a while. Which leads me to my main comparison. We're going to get right into this, right into the meat and potatoes. I need you to bear with me. Family Guy. Yes, Family Guy. Some of you may see where I'm heading with this. It's really simple. One of the most common arguments for the TF2's progressive art style is that the game is goofy. And this is true. Though, when I hear this, I like to bring up Family Guy. Think about it this way. Both Family Guy and TF2 are kind of goofy, silly, and dumb. I mean, Family Guy is a sitcom about a family, and it was always meant to be kind of a silly show. Now, that may be a similarity between the two, but what's my angle? What am I really trying to get at here? Family Guy now is kind of a meme, as we all know. Many people constantly bashing it. But during seasons 1 through 3, it was hailed, or rather, generally liked. I shouldn't say it was hailed. It was funny. It had some good gags, some real thought put into the jokes, and didn't overuse them. Which is where the direct comparison comes in. With Family Guy, what began around season 4 is they started to realize that cutaways were really popular, or at least not despised. So they started to use them more, and more, and more. Eventually, it was constant cutaways. They were using them to get themselves out of jams. The episodes got wilder and wilder until it was too far to come back. They always felt like they had to outdo their last episode. More wacky, more bizarre, more stupid crap that we can jam in. Until, at what it is now, season 23, I think, we have the mess that Family Guy is. It's still okay, in my personal opinion. I know some people are going to completely disagree with me, but I still generally like Family Guy. I'll watch it, turn my brain off for a little bit. but I don't really seek it. You know, it lost its flavor. Those constant cutaways just don't hit so hard anymore. They feel soulless and they seem like they're just trying to get a cheap laugh. It truly felt like the integrity of the show was thrown out the window for a cheap laugh. Now, to work off that, we can look at another very popular title, that being Call of Duty. I know most of you know what I'm getting at, but just stick with me here. Most of you have probably played a Call of Duty game in your lifetime, or at the bare minimum, have heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, have you been living under a rock? I'm joking, of course. I have been a consumer of Call of Duty most of my life. It was one of my favorite games growing up, alongside TF2. It was this and TF2. That was basically my gaming selection right there. My first Call of Duty was technically Call of Duty 3, but that was because I went to GameStop with my mom and wanted to play the cool game all the older kids were playing, so I picked it up not knowing that it was a way outdated game. Call of Duty 3 came out in 2006. This was, I believe, 2012? Not 100% sure. But the first modern COD I played was Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Oh yeah, a fan favorite. I played a ton of that back in the day, mainly zombies. I loved zombies, I couldn't get enough of it. And I did check out the multiplayer campaign as well, but the point is, I have been a consumer of the medium for a long time, since about 2012 to 2013. Over a decade. Though, look at Call of Duty. Call of Duty started out as this gritty war game, specifically World War II to start out, but it would end up branching out with the release of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Call of Duty was meant to be realistic, but arcadey. That was kind of the whole purpose of it. Realistic-ish weapons, realistic scenarios, realistic movement for the most part, but it was fast-paced, so it was enjoyable. At least after COD 3. COD 3 kind of sucked. But anyway. Then it started to go off the walls. Personally, I stopped playing Call of Duty around when Cold War came out, so about 2020, that was the last Call of Duty I bought. And it's because they stopped caring about the art style and just added junk that looked cool. I noticed this right away. There was no attempt to preserve the art style of the game. Some may say this started with Advanced Warfare or Call of Duty Black Ops 3, 2014-2015, but to be honest, it was pretty tame for the most part. I mean, there were some ugly skins, but it really wasn't that bad. And I know they were kind of futuristic, but they didn't really go off the walls, you know. It was futuristic, but within reason. However, I can definitely see where that idea came from. I believe that it started around the release of Warzone in March of 2020 during Modern Warfare 2019 cycle year. We started to get these weird bundles with tracer rounds that were neon pink, red, and green. We got cat skins that you could put on your tank or onto your operators. It's just super weird crap. And that's what it was. It was crap. And Vanguard made it worse. Call of Duty Vanguard 2021. We got Nicki Minaj and Snoop Dogg in Call of Duty, for God's sakes. They kind of lost their direction, which really sucks because it didn't start out this way. From the original Call of Duty up to Modern Warfare 2019. I mean, Modern Warfare 2019 was a kind of return to form. A new engine, but more realistic grayscale and muted colors. But they just got greedy and appealed to people who didn't really understand the core of the game. Like I said, Modern Warfare 2019 didn't even start out this way. And I know that's kind of a doomer take. I am completely aware of that, and I know how I sound, but it's true. The game has really lost touch. TF2 will never go that far, at least I don't think so. Though, I hope you can see what I'm getting at. If you keep saturating the game with more crap and more goofy stuff, they lose their novelty and just look ugly. It's no longer, look how goofy that is, and it just becomes, oh, another ugly-ass hat cosmetic that'll lose its novelty within 24 hours, and just be one of those hats that you either A, sigh, wear it once, and relegate to page 40 of your backpack, or B, sell it on backpack.tf, community market, or whatever website as soon as possible. I mean, there's already hats like that in-game. I mean, look at the, the Towering Patch of Pumpkins? That's an elite grade that sells for 6 refined. The Towering Pillar of Presence, I believe, sells for 7 refined. And there's many elite grades that are supposed to be goofy and wacky that don't even get your money back. You have a 0.8% chance to basically get 25 refined, which is terrible. If you get an elite grade, you should automatically make your money back. That just makes sense. But a lot of cosmetics have been really ugly, except for recent ones, with the exception of like the border beanie and some of the other recent elite grades. They've sucked in the past. Once again, I do not hate goofy cosmetics. They're fine, I have some of my own that would constitute as goofy. The thing is, they're just dime a dozen and aren't so great anymore. It's like inflation. They lose their value the more there are. Now, what is goofy? Well, my definition is this. Ask a person who doesn't play TF2 about a cosmetic. Ask them if they could imagine someone wearing this on the street in a normal setting, or if they themselves would wear this in a normal setting, in public. If yes, chances are it's not a goofy cosmetic. Use your common sense though. Yes, there are outliers and weirdos. There are people who would probably wear some of the goofy cosmetics in real life with no shame. But it should be pretty obvious whether it's normal or not. And then of course you have some like military style cosmetics, because it is a military shooter to an extent, right? Or well, they're mercenaries, but you get what I mean. So obviously there's some exceptions, but just use your common sense for this. It should be pretty obvious what is an outlier and what's not. And if not, then it's probably a goofy cosmetic. And you'll have to break it down from there. There's stuff like the nightcap, which is much softer than the power spike for TF2. I'll go more into this later, and I'll give my personal view and potential solution. But yes, there are some that rank much higher, and there's some that are a little bit less egregious. Now, to move on to my second point. Some of you may say, well, there's a lot of preference in issues like this. What you may dislike, another person might love and not find all that bad. And I agree wholeheartedly. Though, let me put it this way. Not everybody likes the same music. This is obvious if you've been in any comment section on any social media platform involving a music genre. Trust me. Yeah, it's bad. However, if I were to take 100 random people off the street, bring them into a room and play 2 tracks for them, the first one being We Are the Champions by Queen, and play that in the entirety. Then with the exact same group, played Gucci Gang by Lil Pump, I could pretty safely say that Freddie Mercury would get a lot more love than Pump. And I want to preface this by saying this. I do not necessarily hate Lil Pump, but this song is a good example of what I'm talking about. One song is generally applicable, has more soul and effort put into it, while the other one is Gucci Gang. Just crap, it's low effort. And I'm pretty sure if you were to ask Lil Pump about that song, he'd probably say the same exact thing. It was a low effort song. Yeah, it got really popular, but they're a dime a dozen. And this applies to TF2. There are hats that are generally applicable and are liked by most. So, sorry, this was a tangent, but I just wanted to make sure that was understood before I continued. Imagine TF2 like your favorite artist. It's 2016 or 1916 or 1985, I don't know, whatever year. And your favorite artist just put out their first album. For this explanation, I'm going to assume that every single album has exactly 20 songs. Of course, there's variation. Just go with it. It's for the sake of argument and making things a lot cleaner when I explain this. The first album is a little bit rocky, but it's a hit overall, just like TF2 in its infancy. TF2 wasn't always seen as this masterpiece that would stand the test of time. TF2, just like this theoretical album, was solid, but it wasn't perfected. They weren't sure exactly what they were doing yet. This album probably has like 12 universally loved bangers, 6 that are preference-based, but still pretty good, and then 2 that are trash, or maybe not garbage per se, but definitely unpopular. It's an overall success. This artist then produces their next album and really gets a footing. They start to figure out what they want to do, they figure out their sound, or in this case, their art style, what they want in their game. With 15 bangers, 4 that are preference, and then 1 that's just kind of okay, but overall, that's 19 out of 20 songs that are pretty darn good. And you're like, man, this person is awesome. The songs have soul, you can tell effort is put into each and individual song, and even the song that's not great wasn't that bad. It just felt like a song that maybe should have been left off, but, you know, hey, it's alright. Doesn't completely fit, but it works, whatever. Now, maybe they put out some EPs with a similar success ratio. Another album with the same success as the first 2. You know, everything going quite well. Then suddenly, they put out an album that's like 10 bangers, 6 preference, and 4 that just kind of suck. Okay, it's a hiccup, it's cool, it's fine, whatever. Though, the next album is the same, and you start to notice something. The songs sound more and more alike. They don't punch the same. They don't hit. Of course, there is artist fatigue involved. Though, even with that being said, the bangers, they start to put out just sound average, right? When I'm referencing bangers, they're just kind of like decent. They're just kind of okay. And the next album's frequency of bangers gotten smaller until there's like 3 bangers, 10 songs that are average, and 7 that just straight up suck. I'm not even talking about the sound change. Some artists like to branch out. Though like TF2, it seems less like branching out and more like just becoming content. Just, you already got your money, who cares? Right? That's what the artist is thinking. Not really putting much effort into it. If they get far enough, it dies, it's over. Their albums are considered mediocre by most of everyone, the songs sound soulless, and they're just not worth listening to more than once. That's TF2 right now. Well, when it comes to most of the new cosmetics in this art style. At least with music, you can kind of pick and choose the playlist, right? You can weed out the bad songs, but in TF2 you can't. Yeah, you can download a mod that removes all hats, but that's so all or nothing, which really sucks. What I'm describing is kind of like TF2's life. I'm sure you got that from the visuals, but anyway, the first album is kind of like its release. This is the beginning. There are growing pains to be had. The second album can be described as the early day of cosmetics. The third album can be seen as somewhere in between, somewhere in the middle of what is considered modern and old TF2, and then it starts to just decline, getting worse and worse over time. Once again, TF2 and its cosmetics are still great, but there has been an obvious dip in quality, at least from what I can see and many other community members can see. And if you think otherwise, that's completely fine, but I do recommend that you go look at a lot of the old cosmetics. Go look at the retired crate list, see what's in those, or just go to the TF2 wiki class cosmetic list and compare them to many of the modern cosmetics. And then come back to this video, and if you still have that sentiment, then okay, you are an exception. However, I feel like the vast majority will agree that many of the early day cosmetics are just better than the modern ones. Winter 2020 was probably the lowest point, and it has gotten a little bit better. There are still some duds, but overall, they aren't too bad, I guess. Winter 2023, honestly, was probably one of the best that we've gotten in a long time. Still, I feel like overall the cosmetics have taken a nosedive. Well, maybe not a nosedive per se, but some control was lost. And I should mention this now, war paints are kind of a completely different issue, but it follows under the same general principles that I presented thus far. Okay, so I've been talking for a while, just kind of complaining, or what would seem like complaining. With all that being laid out, it's time for me to give my personal solution to something like this. Of course, this is the subjective part of the video. I guess technically the whole video is, but this one's very subjective. We all have our opinions on something like this. Some may believe we should just say screw it and add all goofy hats. Some may say we should have no goofy hats and only trench coats and fedoras. Some people may think we should alternate cases or have 2 distinct cases filled with specific type of cosmetics. Some may say only elite grade should be goofy, kind of like the gunmetal case. Sort of, if you look at that, you'll see what I mean. There are a lot of opinions out there. Hell, I believe that ultra wacky cosmetics should never be anything above commando grade, and elite grade should be at least 1 safe cosmetic. However, that's not what I'm trying to get at in this segment, as it's 100% truly preference. I'm not going to bring that up outside of this argument right now, but it was to show that we do in fact all have different opinions on this matter. Please share yours down below. I would love to hear from you guys. Chances are I'll read all of them. But anyway, let's get back to the actual point here. Mine is a compromise of all of these. Some people hate people who aren't grounded in one side or the other, but in this situation specifically, I think we should try to appeal to the most amount of people possible, without alienating or saying screw you to the others. A case is like an album, which I just talked about for like the last 5 to 10 minutes. We can do a little bit of mixing and matching, appealing to some of the audience, appealing to other parts of the audience. However, it should all come together with the most people happy. Cases obviously vary in how many hats they contain, though they tend to have anywhere from about 16 to 24-ish. I believe Winter 2023 had 22 or 23 cosmetics. I believe it was 23. So, in general, around 20 cosmetics. The way to fix the issue is to create a sort of system. Obviously, the system won't be perfect, but it could be considered a start at the very least. In my very objective personal opinion, 75% of the cosmetics should be considered safe or traditional. They don't necessarily need to be fancy fedora with slightly different design or 100th slightly different suit on Spy. That's not at all what I'm saying. Just stuff that is generally appealing to both new and old players alike. However, going back to how to determine the goofiness of a cosmetic, one way you could do it is asking a person who doesn't play TF2 about a cosmetic. Ask them if they could imagine someone wearing this on the street in a normal setting, or if they themselves would wear this in a regular setting in public. If yes, chances are the cosmetic is not goofy. Of course, there's some weirdos out there. I would also like to add on to this, of course there should be theming of some kind. It is a 1960s, 1970s war-themed hat simulator. I kind of glossed over that in the first explanation because I thought it was generally understood, but just in case, yes, there still should be some theming. Whether that is military, making sure that it doesn't cross too much of a line, such as giving TF2 mercenaries modern fashion trends all the time, stuff like that. If you have 20 cosmetics in a single case, I would say 14 to 16 of the cosmetics should fall under this umbrella general term. They should be classy and not an eyesore to the vast majority of people. They should fit the TF2's original art style pretty closely, not feeling like it was stripped entirely from a different game. Once again, there can be some flavor. It doesn't have to be too vanilla, it should just fit in TF2. I then believe 15%, 2 or 3-ish, cosmetics should be that middle ground. I often bring up the same cosmetics, I'm sorry, but they just make my point a lot easier. Stuff like the nightcap, Wanderer's Wool, Slumber Slacks, Throttlehead, hell, even the Victorian Villainy, Millennial Mercenary, and Goalkeeper. These are all cosmetics that are definitely out there. They don't necessarily fit in TF2, per se, but they feel somewhat grounded in reality. Like, yeah, they would probably exist. Someone would definitely wear this in real life. Maybe do a Halloween party or some sort of convention. Finally, the last 10%. 1 to 2-ish cosmetics can be wacky. This includes your power spikes, optic nerves, ICUs, Yule hogs, potassium bonnets, etc. These are all out there cosmetics that you would honestly never see anyone wear under any normal circumstance. Well, maybe the potassium bonnet, but that really rides the line. I feel like this strikes the best balance. Most cosmetics are safe and will be liked by the majority of the community. They are inoffensive, will make the doomers happy for sure, and new players will get enjoyment out of these hats. Then you have a few that bridge the gap. They're not too overwhelming, they definitely stand out, and would be hard to find people wearing them in real life, but are still generally tasteful. Then to appease the bloodthirsty goober loadout makers, which I fall under sometimes, I've definitely made my fair share of weird loadouts, you have 1 to 2 cosmetics that scratch that itch. Those insane cosmetics that just leave you scratching your head without disrupting gameplay, of course. This would make the most people happy. The weirdos get their weird stuff, the stuck-ups get their fedoras. All is good in the world. Well, probably not. However, I feel like this would solve a lot of issues involving the progressive versus traditional cosmetic debate. That is all I have for now. Let me know your opinions down below. How do you feel about this whole thing? What is your solution to the issue? Is there one? Is one side stupid? You have a voice. Let it be heard. I may add on to this if I ever come up with any more comparisons, but as of now, this is just where I'm going to leave it. So, I will see you guys later. Oh, one more thing. As for Halloween/full moon cosmetics, I don't really care. Those are kind of their own thing. See ya.